Hey, are you working on a project only to find that you forgot a major piece of the project and now it's going to be delayed? Well, stop the scroll because I'm going to talk to you about how you can do some pre-planning so that you can plan out your project in a better way, and then you won't forget all of those things like, you know, let's see, you create a course, right? You finally get the course done and you realize you didn't even create the sales page yet, and now your project is going to be delayed, and that just delays all of your other projects. And so let's just take a look at some of the ways that you can create a project plan, but more in an agile way, in a more scrummy kind of way, so that you're not getting into that paperwork heavy kind of thing like traditional project management. Because here's the thing with traditional project management, even though I think there's a lot of good stuff that is usable in our environment as entrepreneurs, in traditional project management, but sometimes we kind of got lost along the way. The people involved, I think, in project management got a little bit lost along the way, and they started creating all of these templates, right? These great templates. I mean, we all love a good template, right? But the problem is what happens when you have a template that you're trying to complete is that you tend to start wordsmithing things. You think it has to be super formal, and it doesn't have to be, okay? And that's where the Scrum part kind of comes in, right? You could actually create an entire project plan on one of your Trello cards for your project, right? And then it would have, checklists and maybe some sub checklists and maybe multiple checklists. The thing that I don't love about checklists in a card or something like that is there's no place for you to put notes and a little bit more detail in what you need. And so if you think about this, think about the way you're building your plan. We don't use every single tool in our toolbox to hang a picture on a wall, right? So you wouldn't use every single tool in your toolbox for your entrepreneurial ventures to create, something like a course. You're only going to use parts of it. And so that's where we can start fine tuning things and making sure that we're staying focused on the project at hand instead of getting, sidetracked on, oh, well, I need this, and the whole domino effect happens, right? And that domino effect can be daunting. So let's take a look. So first of all, we want to start looking at what the goal of our project is. And usually what happens with the goal of the project is it turns out to be it's the way we're implementing to reach a goal, right? So think about if you have a strategic plan. If you don't, you might want to create one. Even if you just have goals in mind, right? You want to make X amount of dollars a month. And one of the ways that you want to do that is by having like a self-paced course or something like that that you can sell to your clients. And maybe that self-paced course becomes like the basic foundational things that you want to teach your people so that they're prepared to be in your coaching program, right? So they're more prepared, they're more ready to buy because they have those foundational pieces. And so the goal of the project is to implement that one piece, the course, right? And get it out there so that you can sell it, so that you can reach that goal of making a percentage of your monthly income from sales of that course. So you see how that goal is. Now, the purpose of the project is a little bit different. The purpose is kind of the why and what the benefit is going to be for your user. So the purpose might be to create, build, and get ready to sell and be ready to sell a course that's part of maybe a larger funnel that will be built out over time. And that's going to take your clients through that process, right? Through that process of learning the foundational elements so they are more prepared for your coaching program. So that purpose is in there, where the goal was simply, we need to create X amount of income from this course. And we need to do that to make our larger goal of making, 10K a month or whatever it is that you're trying to make as your goal. And so then that purpose is really the why. Why do we want to do this? Why are we choosing to create a course? We're choosing to create a course because it's a way that we can fast track our people to get them more ready for our program. Okay, so you see how that purpose kind of aligns with not only your client's goals, but also your goals in terms of your revenue goals. Okay. And then the thing we want to do next is to start identifying the deliverables. Okay. Now, deliverables are different than output. And I'm going to get to output in just a second. The deliverables are more like the more polished thing, like the completed course, and it has 5 units, and each unit has 3 lessons. That's like a deliverable. Like, you've got it now, it's built, it's all part of the package, and maybe it's documented to your specifications, that kind of thing, whatever you want to do. Now, most of us are working alone, right? And if you're working alone, then you may not make it that formal. But if you're working, if somebody is working for you, you may want them to have a better documentation practice, so you have good documentation of what the intention was going to be for that course and how it was planned out. So anyway, so we get those deliverables, right? And now we start breaking down those deliverables. Think about input and output. Okay. So in order to create the unit and the lesson, maybe a lesson, I probably first need to have an outline of what my course is going to be. And so I'm going to have input, that outline, in order to create the output, which is going to be maybe a video, a workbook, maybe a quiz at the end of the section, or whatever you decide to do is going to be part of your course. So thinking about what it's going to be and how you will deliver your course will help you identify what output you need to create for your course. And of course, the input is super important too, because you don't want to get down the road on your project and you realize you forgot an important piece that was maybe pre-work to this project that you needed to do. For example, if you're being a good scrummer and you're building at least part of things as you go, you may have a bunch of materials that are already part of this course that can be utilized and leveraged. And then, you would have to go through like an audit process where you collect everything, you audit what you have, you make an improvement plan, or you figure out how it's going to work in your larger course, and then you use that. And if you didn't do that up front, now you've got a plan for that and make sure that it's part of your project. So think about those inputs that you're going to need, because that may take time for you to get those inputs ready, right? From a previous project, or just simply gathering information, doing some research, etc. Okay, so make sure that you're thinking about input as opposed to output, and the input is obviously output from something you did previously, or it's it's output from that, but it could be input from like research you do or whatever. So think about that when you go through this process of what are you going to need, like what are your prerequisites, right? Also, you want to think about your software and the tools that are required. If you've never done something like editing videos, you may need to find a video editor, right? You need to have a way to deliver your course, like using Thinkific or Teachable or GrooveFunnels or ClickFunnels or whatever to deliver that course. So you're going to have to make a decision on what software you're going to use if you don't already have that decision made. So keep that in mind, because it's something that's going to take some time, because you'll need to do research and figure out which platform is going to be the best for you. And then you also will find that you have maybe a learning curve, and it could be a learning curve on the software that you're going to use, a learning curve on some of the tools that you're going to use. It could be a learning curve on things like creating copy or whatever. And that's where we can get really, really focused on our learning. And remember, I always talk about this, like we don't want to go down that rabbit hole in the shiny object syndrome, right? And be buying a bunch of courses that we don't even need the information right now. We're just buying because we know we're going to need it someday. So we buy it thinking, oh, well, I'll go through it now. And we end up down a rabbit hole. So we don't want to do that. And so instead, we want to make sure that we include any learning that has to happen in our project plan so that you can slate out the time that you're going to need to do that learning. So you may also opt to do only partial learning, like learn what you need to get the job done, and then go back as you iterate through. Um, go back and learn deeper and deeper and deeper as you go. But to get one project done, you might be able to get away with just learning, the bare minimum concepts, and then move into the detail when you need it. All right. And then now that you have that, you've got what deliverables you need to deliver, what the output is you're going to create, and what input you're going to need in order to create that output and generate that output. Now you want to start looking at tasks and what tasks are involved in generating that output and defining your scope. And so as we look at things, if you don't have tasks yet, you can do more of a high level estimate, right? You start looking at each piece. What do I need to create this output, this output, this output, and then create some estimates. But if you are having a hard time doing a high level estimate, you might need to break things down into smaller and smaller tasks that you can estimate. And then once you have everything kind of estimated, then you can start prioritizing. And how do we prioritize in Scrum? Must have, should have, could have, and won't have at this time, right? Remember the iPhone. The iPhone had a won't have at this time when it was the iPhone 1, and that was the forward-facing camera. And so you may have those kinds of things too, where, yeah, it would be great to have that thing, but if I run out of time, or maybe this time we're not going to put it in the scope, we'll have it set aside for something we can do later. Again, you're going to have could haves, you're going to have should haves, but you're definitely going to have the must haves, and you want to get those pieces done first. And that's how we prioritize, by those must haves, should haves, could haves, and won't have it this time. And then make sure that you are looking at dependencies as well when you think about that, right? So if you have to produce a course, well, the dependency is you have to have some sort of an outline or something so you know what the heck you're going to teach, right? And so you have to create that. So look at that dependency. That little outline is going to be a must-have. You have to have that thing. It's not necessarily a deliverable, but it is an output that needs to be created for input to building out the rest of your course. Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is just the formalizing or not formalizing. So, you only need to do what is, the bare minimum amount of documentation that you require. And it could be you whiteboard this thing out, you snap a picture, you upload it into your card on your Trello board or Jira or whatever you're using. And then you start making a checklist from that of the things that you need to do. But, and as long as you're thinking about all the things and you don't, end up at the end of your project realizing you forgot something big that's now going to delay you, you can probably just use that, right? But if you find that you're always in the situation where you're either super overwhelmed, you lose your direction in the middle of your project, or you don't exactly, know, like you're missing some of the pieces when you get to the end of your projects, then you might want to formalize a little bit more and create more of a real project plan that will guide you through this thing. Now, the project plan, if it's just you, does not have to be formal. I mean, it doesn't have to be wordsmithed and formalized with perfect language and all that. It can still be a casual document, but it needs to include all the things that help you stay on track. Okay. So think about that, because if you have a team, a large team, you might have to get a little bit more formalized just so you can keep straight of who's doing what pieces are in place, what pieces are in progress, what's going on, all of those sort of things. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a document, but a document can really help you. Just steer clear of making it so formal and wordsmithed, because that can end up taking you forever just to write the document, right? You really would just want to get your thoughts down, make sure that you're including all the things. A bullet pointed list with some notes underneath it is probably fine. But remember that you're going to do what you need to do to stay on track. It doesn't matter if somebody else can just do it all in their head and they just are great and they can just do everything, perfectly well because they've done it a million times or whatever. Or maybe they're that, super organized type A person, not me. but if you need it written down more and you need it spelled out a little bit more, then do that. Just make sure that it's easy for you to go back to and read and refer to all throughout your project, because you're going to need that. And make sure it's a living document. It's not a finalized, this is it. You keep updating that document as you go. The beauty of having that document is then you have something that you can repeat every single time you have a project. You can repeat that process, go through it again. You'll get better and better at it as you go, and your projects will have better outcomes in the future because you're doing this footwork up front. Okay? All right. And then one last item is don't forget about continuous improvement. You don't want to stay stuck in perfectionism because you're trying to get that course perfect. You want to get all those must-haves done, maybe some of the should-haves done, or maybe all of them done, and maybe some of the could-haves done. But you definitely want to manage your scope so that you can actually get the thing done in a timely manner, because the longer it takes, the more discouraged you'll probably become, and more impatient you'll become. And then you'll start cutting corners where you didn't want to cut corners. So let's make sure that we're prioritizing that list and estimating how long things are going to take, and creating a timeline of when you think you'll be able to get these things done. Because remember, you have to keep all the balls in the air, right? While you're working on a project, you're still going to need to create content and do your social media and all the things, see your clients. You can't just abandon everything to work on a project. So you've got to fit it into your schedule. And then that will help you create that timeline based on your estimates and your time blocking and all that stuff, right? All righty. Okay, guys, I hope that helps, and we will see you in the comments.